Welcome to Alter Your Algorithm, a podcast where we talk about what we focus on and how we can make sure it's Jesus. I'm Jackson.
I'm Tyler.
How's it going, Tyler?
It is going really good, Jackson. It's nice and rainy here today, and I know you said you took a few naps today. You're getting rested up from one of your big events. You want to tell us a little bit about how that went?
It was amazing. We just got back from Impact, which is at the campus of Lipscomb University. We took around 25 kids. Some of them actually were from Southside, got to come with us, and it was just an amazing week. The theme was called Grim.
Okay.
And we kind of evaluated, your story may not go perfect. As a matter of fact, it probably won't go perfect. And so there was a skit that we participated in, and it was a look at some of the really popular fairy tales and how they went wrong, but how through them going wrong, we're able to see resolution. And specifically in our walk with faith, our walk with God, our faith can be a huge factor in us not giving up or trying to control our own destiny. And then the other thing was everybody who you let into your life is influencing your story. So who are you letting help write your story? And then also there's a reminder that, yeah, we've got a story, but we're not the main character.
That's awesome.
It was just a great week. It was exhausting. It may be the most exhausting week that we have, but it's great. The kids loved it, and I'm excited about next year already. So
That's good. I know you're busy because I would send you a message, and then 2 or 3 days later, I'm pretty sure you texted me 2 in the morning one time. I was like, I did not get that till at least 7:30 or 8 the next day.
Yeah, it's a different beast. It's a neat event. If you ever get to come down, and Cohen ever comes, he'll get to see just how much work goes into it. One of the coolest things about it is that there are so many youth ministers that I get to work with and collaborate with.
Yeah, that's good.
It's just neat. It reminds me a little bit of last year with church camp, getting to work with Daniel McCarley. Yeah, and it's just neat when you have so many creative people working on a common goal. It can become very, very special. It can be silly, but it can also be spiritually impactful, and that's what we go for. That's what's called Impact.
Yeah, that's good. Well, last week, if you guys didn't get a chance to listen, go back and listen to Hope. We had a little delay in getting that out. It wasn't our normal time, but Hope did an awesome job. And I was telling Jackson before we got on, one thing that stuck with me, just a simple, profound thought that he had was, we can't do everything, but we can do something. And I thought that was pretty neat that he said that, and it's as simple as that. We can do something. And he very servant led and driven, and we appreciate having him on. So this week it's just you and I, Jackson. You want to tell us a little bit about what we're working on?
Yeah, we're working in a series right now called I Am, and we're going to be looking at a specific story or character from the Bible and kind of evaluating what they went through, why they went through it, and how God shows up in that, how it continues to point to Jesus. And so today the title of the episode is I'm the Prodigal Son. And when we look at the prodigal son, I think there are 3 characters in this story that we could probably spend a whole podcast talking about. We could talk about the prodigal son, which is what we're going to be talking about mostly today. We could talk about the father, and then we can talk about the brother of the prodigal son. And it I was telling you before, this is my favorite parable that Jesus preached. It comes in Luke chapter 15, and there are 2 other stories in it, the lost sheep, the lost coin, and then the prodigal son or the lost son. But as we evaluate the prodigal son, we acknowledge that at least to some degree, everybody wants freedom. And not to some degree. We want to make our own decisions. We want to chase our own dreams. We want to live life our own way. And so it's not, the problem isn't wanting freedom. The problem is how we can confuse freedom and independence, and how that can sort of mess us up. When we look at the prodigal son, we see this guy who is rebellious. He wants his freedom / independence. Maybe he's not 100% sure what he wants, but we see how it turns out for him whenever he goes out on his own. And to a degree, we have all been there. We've all tried to do something on our own. We've all spiritually isolated ourselves, and that can be very, very detrimental. So today we're going to ask the question, what if we're chasing something that only the Father can give us? What if the thing you're chasing can't give you only what the Father can? So I'm excited to talk about the prodigal son.
Yeah, and I think this series is really about challenging us, obviously myself and you and others, to think in a way that you are currently these people. Obviously, you could say I've been the prodigal son, or I've been the younger brother, but think of it in a way of you are currently these people. So whenever we're going through this today, and it's not, I mean, this is not. We're just doing this as a challenge, and the great thing about it is we still have grace in Jesus, and at the end of the day, we just strive to be better. But our driving scripture for today is Luke 15:17. When he came to his senses, he said, "How many of my father's hired servants have food to spare, and here I am starving to death?" I bolted when he came to his senses, and I think just that was the turning point. It wasn't that he ran out of money. It wasn't that his friends disappeared, or the grass just wasn't greener on the other side. The turning point came whenever he saw the situation clearly. And sometimes the greatest thing is not necessarily a change in circumstances, but it's just our change in perspective. He was looking for something that only the Father could give. And
you talk about when he comes to his senses, like everybody reading this story knows from the get-go, you've got somebody who is wanting their money before they're, fully grown or whatever.
Right.
We know how this story's going to go. It's not going to end well. And we see that happen with so many people today. It's definitely about, eventually sometimes you just come to your senses and you see that, okay, this isn't how I needed to live my life.
I mean, just thinking about coming to our senses, a lot of times whenever we're thinking about, just even thinking about things being more appealing than they really are. Or a lot of times we have the mindset that if, once I'm older, I'll do this, or once I have more money, I'll do this, or when things slow down, I'll do this. Those things never happen, right? So,
as I said, they never happen like how we think they will.
Right.
Especially when we are trying to do the will of God.
Yeah.
What we plan and what we think is the right decision, ultimately God's going to do something greater than we can ever imagine. And I find the story of the prodigal son amazing because we see his grace. We see the grace of God just everywhere.
Yeah.
So to back up a little bit, the prodigal son didn't leave his father because he hated his father.
Right.
There's this young guy. He decides, I want my inheritance, Dad, even though you haven't even died yet. I want you to go ahead and give me what's mine. And so the father gives it to him. He left because he believed, the prodigal son left the father because he believed there was something better for him waiting somewhere else.
Well, I mean, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, you go ahead.
Well, I mean, it's just like everybody wants to be at the top of the mountain, and they don't want to take the steps to get there. Thinking about, we're the prodigal son more than we would really like to, admit. I mean, some of us want to shed a few pounds as quickly as possible, or don't want to keep the discipline to do it. We want to be able to bench 300 pounds without doing the work to get there, or that's just some vain things to think about. You want to be a boss of an organization without stepping through the process. Like, you have to learn how to be certain, fill certain roles before you can have that ultimate role. I mean, sometimes it's chasing success or relationships or approval or money or comfort or control. I mean, we all have those things that, are appealing to us or whatever. But what's great about this story is we like to assume that we're the younger brother, and we're disappointed that, he ran off, right? And he wanted his inheritance early, and he squandered it off. But I mean, we're a society that wants everything as quickly as possible, even information. We want it now. We want it yesterday. So I think we can relate to the prodigal son a lot better than we like to admit.
For sure. I think, and to try and think about it from what you're saying is a spiritual perspective, because there's so much vanity in the story of the prodigal son. But trying to think about, like, the inheritance that we've been promised is a home in heaven with Christ.
Right.
And that's what we should be striving towards. And so obviously the prodigal son is putting things in his way that are making that very, very difficult to do. And so it's so important for us to realize that we need to avoid those things, but also we don't need to take what the Father has given us and or what he's promised us and not live like he has promised us that. This younger brother, the prodigal son, is just thinking if I had that, he'd finally be happy. He goes to this far country. He thinks it's going to be great and awesome. And it's just not. And we, like you were saying, we all have that place.
Right.
So I guess a question for you, Tyler, is why do you think that the younger son wanted his inheritance early? Or maybe a better question would be, why do you think we as people want so quickly?
I mean, I think greed has to be a part of it, just at a surface level. I think we are wired to want more of things that we don't necessarily need. Like, I mean, I mentioned, I just think about, let's say that you have a goal and you reach that goal. And this isn't a bad thing, but I mean, you reach that goal. Let's just say, I want to go run a mile in 6 minutes, and I work really hard and I go do it, and then what? So it's completed. Then it's not going to be good enough. I'm going to want to do it in 5:45 or whatever it is, or that it's can never get enough. It's never going to fulfill you. You're always going to want more. You can't just eat one piece of popcorn. Just go to the movies and eat one piece of popcorn. It's not incredible
self-control.
Yeah, it's not going to happen, right? So I think he's young, ambitious, wants to know what's out there, and I think he's a lot like everyone in the world. I just think he wanted to see what was on the other, out there, and he took the risk to do so, and we know how the story ends, and that's what's great about our Father, right?
Yeah.
And that's what we're going to talk about as we move forward. So what do you think he was actually searching for?
I think he was searching for what he thought would make him feel content. Now, he was looking in the wrong spot. He was looking in all the wrong places. Again, I look at society and I look at how people are spending their time, and I see this happening regularly, and it's sad. But eventually, I think even today, people realize that what they think they need, what they're actually searching for, is a space to be content. And I think people realize that it's only through Christ that they can get that contentment. So he was looking for contentedness or contentment.
Yeah.
Is that the right word?
Yeah, contentment.
He was looking for that. He was just looking in the wrong spot.
Right.
What do you think are like our modern day far countries, these places where we go to find this contentment?
I think a lot of people get wrapped up in success. I was asked recently about having a successful first year as a principal, and I was like, well, what is success? What does that mean? Like, what I'm saying? Like, what it's subjective, right? What's successful to you might not be to me, but I do think that a lot of people want to feel important. They want to be liked. I think society and social media does that, right? I mean, you're rewarded by how many times people view or like or subscribe or follow and all that, and it's that I get my tonins mixed up, but what is that? Is that a serotonin? Not serotonin. It's definitely not melatonin.
Endorphin.
Yeah, and it's an endorphin hit, right? And but then what, right? You can never get enough of it, and what does it all mean, right?
Well, and the things that even the prodigal son, he goes and squanders all his money. He goes and again, I see it. The question was like modern day far countries, like what he was going through is also a modern day far country,
right?
Where people go and they're in chase of success, or they're in chase of the approval of others. They're looking for that endorphin hit. And maybe it's drugs, maybe it's social media, maybe it's, there's just all kinds of sinful activities that people can participate in which they legit just squander their money. I see like 38 commercials a day for all of these like gambling apps and stuff.
Right.
And I'm just like, how many people who are my age and younger are seeing this as a way to get rich and be able to set themselves up, and then before they know it, they're addicted to it. And it's just like it's this thing where we could literally lose the things that God has blessed us with, and we were not being good stewards of what he's given us. And so
Right.
even the things that the Bible is timeless, and the things that he was struggling with, we also can struggle with too. And I think sometimes they've just been reskinned,
Yeah, it's like he wanted what belonged to him and was ultimately going to come to him, but he wanted it his time, right? And not the right time or God's time. A lot of times we pray, God, give me the blessings, but without wanting the process. They just want the blessings, right? Or they want the promotion without the preparation, or the marriage without maturity. They want the platform without having the character first. Or a lot of times we're more interested in God's gift than God's timing.
Absolutely.
And that's where, it's like, I don't know, planting the seed sometimes before we plow the ground, and making sure that there's some prep work that goes into that. And he wasn't ready. He wasn't mature enough to have what was coming his way. And that's what's so good about God's timing and God's will. My life would be completely different if my will had been done. And I'm so thankful for God's will and God's blessing and God's timing, because my timing, I would be in a completely different place. I don't know about you.
Right. Well, for sure. It would be without God, and I think this leads us into the next question pretty good, but without God, we would be exactly where the prodigal son is. I think everybody would be. And it's where we would be is where we think individually we would be better off, or we would be best off. So us saying that, okay, with God, we are better off. Why do people believe that something else was going to satisfy them?
Yeah, I don't know. And that's the thing. If we put our, the one thing that's going to be there is God's love, right? If we put our, let's just say our health or our looks, above all things, and we get older, then what?
Right.
Or if we, go all in and all we focus on is our spouse, and then our spouse gets sick and dies, then what? Or our kids, and they get older and then they go get married. And, that's why it's very important that we put that. All these things are great things, and we must and need to enjoy those. But that's why it's important to have Christ as that foundation of those, and having Jesus as being able to, communicate with, or back and forth with, as guidance and things of that nature. I don't know. Just the worldly things can't satisfy us. That relationship with Jesus Christ can.
Yeah, I think there are lies that are preached by the enemy, and sometimes they just look enticing, and people are drawn to it, and so beware.
So, have you ever chased something and discovered it wasn't what you thought it would be?
Absolutely. I think everybody's done this, and maybe they're in the midst of it and they don't see that it's something that's not God-filled. I can think of at least two things off the top of my head, and it's just this idea that if I am able to reach the pinnacle of this, I'll be satisfied.
Yeah.
And it's like you were saying, that pinnacle is unreachable. There's always going to be somebody who is, quote unquote, better than you. There's always going to be somebody who can run faster. There's always going to be somebody that just can and you can't. Or maybe you are the quote unquote best at something, well, eventually time's going to catch up and you won't be anymore, you know? Whenever we chase those things, it is inevitable that you're going to discover that it's not what you thought it would be, unless what you are chasing is Christ.
Right. Well, and, in this story, the prodigal son left and the father, he didn't chase him, right? It's kind of an interesting observation. The father never ran after him into the far country. He let him choose. But whenever he saw the son and the son, had turned to come home, the father ran then. And it just kind of shows you God's not going to force you to come home, but he'll never let you walk alone. Absolutely. Or walk home alone, So that's pretty powerful and important.
Beautiful. There. It's beautiful. That's the last question that we were going to talk about is while he was still a long way off, the prodigal son is working up this speech in his head.
Yeah.
And he's saying, okay, what I'm going to tell my dad is, I'm so sorry that I did what I did. Will you please hire me as one of your servants?
Yeah.
Will you please hire me as somebody who works for you? That way I can at least eat. And the father sees him a long way off, and he runs to meet him. And that's what I imagine it's like for God when he sees his children come to him.
Yeah.
It's just this celebration. And that's what they do. They get together. The father says, let's kill the fatted calf. Let's throw a party. My son has returned. And it is such a joyful experience when somebody comes back. We should be at that party, like pumped up and just glad and letting them know, like, okay, this is the space. This is where you're supposed to be.
Right.
This is where you can find that contentment. Let's put you in a space in this community where you do feel loved, where you get to experience what God has promised, like heaven on earth kind of moment where we're able to just show what it means to be a follower of Christ.
Right.
That's what, if we aren't in that season of prodigal, if we're not lost, but we're at home waiting for people to come back, like that's what we should be doing, is celebrating.
Yeah, the son rehearsed guilt and the father prepared grace. How many times are we rehearsing things that God has already forgiven, right? Mm-hmm. We beat ourselves up, about we're going to make wrong choices and we're going to be the prodigal son and we're going to chase, the wind, so to speak. But God, thank God for grace, right?
Absolutely.
So.
Absolutely. Well, as we transition here into our alter your algorithm connection, our first point here is freedom without direction leads to bondage. The son thought freedom meant doing whatever he wanted. He could go and spend all the money, there wouldn't be consequences, and he would be fine. But instead of being fine, he became enslaved. So his freedom that he had without wisdom became recklessness, and his independence without purpose became isolation, and running from the boundaries that are meant to protect you, the boundaries that are put up by God to keep us in his flock often create new chains when we run from those. So the son leaves home, he's looking for freedom, he ends up stuck in a pig pen, feeding the pigs and wanting to eat what they're eating because he's so hungry.
Yeah.
That's a crazy turnaround. Sometimes the things we think are going to free us are the things that end up enslaving us.
Yeah, and that's we become slaves to things that we're not supposed to become slaves to,
Mm-hmm.
Second point here is the far country always overpromises. Sin advertises satisfaction. It rarely mentions the consequences. We think about, the good things that, may come, or the joy or the quick pleasure or whatever it is that we seek, but we don't think about the consequences. That's the problem with sin. It promises happiness. It promises fulfillment. It promises freedom. The far country always looks better from a distance. And I think about, whenever he wasn't necessarily running away from the Father. We're not necessarily running away from God. We're just slowly replacing him. And that's what's tricky with it, replacing him with busyness or comfort, kid schedule, success, phones, entertainment, whatever it is. It's kind of idolatry at a minute scale. We don't like to think of it as that, but whenever we're putting things before the Father, then they become idols. and it's a quick, slow. I know that's kind of oxymoron. Like before you realize it, you've stepped away. It's one step at a time. It's not, going in a completely different direction. It's just one step at a time. But before you know it, you're in the far country, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Well, think about the first sin where Satan tricked Eve into eating the fruit. That's exactly what was going on. This fruit seemed good right now. This fruit seemed like what needed to be consumed. And then as soon as it was consumed, it was evident. Like as soon as it was consumed,
right,
it was evident that was the wrong decision. This thing now, there's now a barrier between us and God. It can happen just like that. It stinks. But the good news is that grace runs faster than shame. So the son comes home, he's preparing this speech, and he's trying to, figure out what am I going to be able to say so that my father will show me a little bit of grace. And he doesn't even get a chance to say a word. The father comes running to him, and the son is ready to give his speech, and he says a few words, and his father's like, stop. Let me tell you what we're going to do. We're going to celebrate your return. Shame says hide, but grace says come home. Shame says you've gone too far. Grace says you're still my child. God runs to us, not because we have earned forgiveness, but because we never stopped being his child. And that's exactly what's represented in this story, is this child has always been the child of that father. And that father loved that child no matter what. And that same love that God had for his children in the Old Testament for Israel, we look at them and we see how many times they messed up, yet God still loved them so much that he sent Jesus. And that's the Jesus that we serve. It's pretty awesome. It's pretty awesome.
Yeah. All right, so as always, we want to leave you with a battle plan for the week, your months, whatever it is, daily. First point we have here is, we've talked about this a lot, but identify what your far country is. Every one of us has a far country. The only difference is they have different zip codes. For one person, it might be a bar, an office. It might be a golf course, social media. It might be just the pursuit of approval, like we talked about. Far country isn't always defined by geography. But ask yourself, where am I looking for fulfillment outside of God? Is it success or comfort or approval? Is it in relationships or control? We can't return home until we're honest about where we've wandered off to. And it's one step. For every step that we take away, we got to take two coming back towards God. So we just got to watch it.
Yeah, and we have to pay. That's the second point. Pay attention to drift. Nobody wakes up in the big pen. It is one decision at a time that gets us there. And so there are a bunch of things that can lead us to that without us even realizing. Neglected prayer, inconsistent worship, compromised priorities, little distractions here and there can get us there before we even realize it. So beware of that. We were at Impact. David Skidmore did a lesson, and he has this thing that he does with his youth group. It's called 5-4-3-2-1. And he had a parent ask him one time, what is your youth group going to do for my kid? And he was like, hold on, let's talk about this for a second. What is my youth group going to do for your kid? No, my youth group's not going to do anything for your kid. Your kid is going to be a servant in my youth group, in the sense that, like, that's what I hope they realize that they should have a servant heart, but they're also not going to do that unless they show up. That's like the number one thing is showing up. And I'm like, oh man, I love that. I'm gonna take at least bits and pieces of that and apply it to youth group. But it talked about how it's important to have people. He talked about how it's important to have people in your life who pour into you, who you also pour into, because when you do that, it's a whole lot harder to drift. Like accountability is a big part of that. Accountability keeps you from drifting. For sure.
All right, last point here, or last part of our battle plan is take one step home. The son didn't have everything figured out. He simply got up and started walking. Pray again, open up your Bible again, re-engage with church, have conversations you've been avoiding. you don't have to have it all together. Just start walking. And like we mentioned, God's gonna meet you there, and He's gonna walk back with you. Find you an accountability partner, like you mentioned. But there's some part of our life that we are the prodigal son. Identify it, pay attention to the drift, and take one step home.
Yeah. Well, the other thing that we don't realize when we're talking about the prodigal son, we see how physically he was affected. He lost all his money, and he's now working at a pigsty. We need to realize how spiritually desperate we are, or how spiritually desolate we are without Christ. And so that's what should be drawing us home.
Right.
And we don't have to have it. We don't have to have it all figured out. We can't have it all figured out. We just need to realize that, hey, Christ is loving on us, and so let's take advantage of it. Let's let Him forgive us. Don't resist it.
Right.
As we close this episode, we like to give you a challenge. Ask yourself this question: what have I been expecting to satisfy me that was never designed to? Whatever it is, there's many things that we've mentioned. Maybe it's your job. Maybe it's an addiction that you have. Maybe it's just something that's distracting you or taking your time away from God. Whatever it is, take one intentional step towards the Father. And what does that mean, to take one intentional step towards the Father? Who are the people in your life that are going to encourage you? When's the last time you said a prayer? When was the last time you walked through the doors of a church to seek Christ? When was the last time you just observed nature and saw the beauty in it and acknowledged that God is your creator? The more we think about God as our Savior, the more we think about God as the person in our life who saves us, the more we are going to realize that only in Him can we have satisfaction.
All right, I think we have a tornado warning, so yeah,
it's pouring right now.
We're about to get up under the stairs. So do you want to finish us with a prayer, and we'll get out of here?
Yeah. God, thank you for today. Thank you for this time. I just pray for safety, your wisdom, and everything that we have in you. So continue to watch over us. We thank you for your Son. It's in His name we pray. Amen.
Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Alter Your Algorithm. We hope you found inspiration for your journey today. If you have questions, thoughts, or want to connect, reach out to us at alterpod@gmail.com, or you can search for us on Facebook at Alter Your Algorithm. Remember, alter is spelled ALTAR. Until next time, stay focused, stay faithful, and keep altering your algorithm.